and let us know if you're interested in joining. If there's no one, maybe we can kickstart with a couple things. Obviously, this is a short week in the US. Monday was off for everyone. But today is the first of the month, and so we launched our campaign for retroactive funding, which happens every month. And one of the goals of retroactive funding, as you probably remember, is to have the community, so all of you and beyond, reward the builders that built something cool, useful, as well as the people that have promoted the protocol on social networks, created memes, etc., etc. The functioning is, the way it works is actually pretty simple. Every month, on the first of the month, our team, Unlock Labs, will allocate 100 UDT for now, and will ask people in the community to nominate either themselves or somebody else to receive their share of that 100 UDT. At the end of the week, on the 7th of the month, nomination is closed, and we move into the voting period, at which point any token holder, whether they own 1 or 1,000 or more, is invited to come vote on who among the nominees should get a share of the 100 UDT tokens. The core goal here is kind of double. Is first to reward the impactful behaviors, the thing that made a difference, but also it is to distribute ownership and say, hey, if you've worked for the protocol, I won't say, if you've helped the protocol in any way, you should have your say in the governance, and you should earn some of these governance tokens. After a week of voting, and actually I should mention, we use quadratic voting. So even though somebody with more tokens would have a bigger weight, the biggest impact is the number of different people who vote for a given nominee. So if I have 100 token and I vote for someone, and I'm the only person voting for that person, but somebody else is another candidate and get 10 votes with each 10 tokens, they're going to get more votes than my candidate, they're going to get more tokens than my candidate down the line, which I think is a very useful way to kind of counter the nepotism sometimes in token communities where a whale might decide of everything. Anyway, I see Carlo Zelf is in the audience. Carlo actually did an amazing job. I think he's one of the grantees that actually got nominees, actually I say, on the retroactive funding that actually earned tokens on 5 of the last 6, if I'm correct, which is pretty cool. Anyway, so today we opened the submission period for the retroactive funding that we're going to do. So you have 7 days to nominate somebody else, nominate yourself. I know Matt has added his nomination, and I'm really grateful. Matt, for context, for people that are here, worked on the Notion integration and did something really, really cool. Built an application called monetize.links that allows anyone to put a membership contract on top of a Notion document, and then publish the Notion document in a way that only the people that have a valid membership can actually access the document. And this is a really, really cool integration that I'm really excited to see out there, and that we're going to use more and more as the team.
Yeah, it was really fun. Thank you. Thank you for that. And since you're on that subject, I had sent over a retro sort of presentation about my experience creating that. So feel free to share that more widely with the community.
Wow. Yeah, I just saw the link. This is amazing. Do you mind if I share it with the
community? No, please. Yeah.
Okay, that's really, really amazing. And I mean, just that, I should say, is a very valid contribution to the community for the retroactive funding, I should say. This is the kind of thing that helps us, the core team, improve the protocol, improve the tooling to make it really, really easier for everyone. So you know what, Matt, if you don't mind, it's even better if you do share it on Discord in the public channels. I think it could go a long way. And yeah, indeed, like there's 13 slides. Wow, that's really, really good. I'm going to spend some time.
Maybe you should read it first just to make sure. I think it's all fine, but
I love to say this, but I'm not the boss here, right? Like I'm just yet another community member. It's really useful. I'm if you feel like I should spend some time looking at this, I'm happy to. But I don't want to act as a gatekeeper in any way. We're really building this for the community, and so I'm not going to censor obviously anything that's in there or be upset at anything that you've written there. I mean, slide 4
Yeah,
is amazing. Direct support from Julian save time. Yes, absolutely. The goal would be though that you don't need me, and that we have
exactly.
good docs and we have good tutorials online to do that.
Exactly, yeah. There was, and I don't know if now's the time to talk about it. If not, I can save this for
Yeah,
later.
cool. Go ahead.
But I did have, in thinking about Unlock a Bit, I did have a question about royalties, which is something that um, I
NFTs.
know. Yeah, I know the reward model that we have right now with creating
The,
the governance
the
token
Yep.
on key purchase, and I think that's really clever and ideal in many ways. But I'm left with, thinking of maybe there's other ways to do this, and if the protocol itself had built-in royalties um, to actually transfer something else, maybe that would be beneficial. So.
What you're thinking here.
I mean, just when you purchase an NFT or let's forget NFTs. When you purchase a key for 1 ether, then 1 ETH, then maybe 5% or something gets tacked on to some other party. So, like, really concretely, I built this monetized.link software as a service essentially that provides an interface layer that sort of does this gating, and it doesn't really have a business model at the moment
Mhm.
other than the governance token
Token.
and
Yep. Yep.
occasionally doing the uh, credit card sales maybe. But what I would really like to see is that there's an explicit 2% fee or 1% or some sort
Yes.
of fee that I can add on to one or more wallet addresses so that when the key purchase happens, it automatically transfers money.
That's a very good question, and it's absolutely something that I've been thinking a lot about. Is like, how can we make, let's say, platforms in practice collect a share off of the sales that a creator does through the platform. So let's not talk about Notion specifically, but imagine kind of a YouTuber wants to put a lock on their YouTube videos and ask YouTube to implement the protocol. YouTube's implement the protocol, but YouTube says, hey, every time somebody purchases a membership, of course, we're going to earn governance token, but we'd love to get a share also of the, say, dollar amount that the creator is making. Is that the correct way to frame this?
Exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's just a realization that I've had recently that we should really be building tech that includes middlemen, even though for sort of some large portion of time we're trying to remove middlemen with tech. I think actually that middlemen serve a purpose, and
Yeah, I would
but
actually kind of agree with that. Like, I would not say so. Removing middlemen is like providing the choice. Basically, I think to me is the core aspect. It's like a middleman is fine as long as they are not a gatekeeper, I should say. And
mm,
so the model that you're describing, where the platform itself is rewarded for the work, because in practice the platform would be doing the work of hosting the videos in the context of YouTube, for example, or even doing the promotion of the video. I think it's fair to assume that the platform in that scenario might want to be rewarded. So there's two ways of thinking about this. One way first is, I'd say, at the core protocol level, one of my ideas for a long time, and I don't think it's my role to implement it, to be clear, is to add a mechanism whereby on any key purchase, the protocol itself not only distributes some governance token, but takes a little fee, takes maybe 1 to 5%, and that goes back to the DAO in that way. And so in that scenario, the protocol takes a fee and to the DAO, and then whoever is the implementer, since they got tokens, can, get a claim on that fee in some way. There's multiple ways to do this, but for me, that's one thing that I hope the protocol does down the line. That said, it's not the only thing that I think would be applicable here, because it doesn't quite solve necessarily the problem that you're talking about. It's really about monetizing the protocol more than it is monetizing the platform, the middleman that you're describing here. I've been thinking a lot about this. There's multiple ways to do this already in the protocol. One of the ways is to, so as you know, the lock, the smart contract itself has what we call a beneficiary. And as is the address that will receive the funds when they're withdrawn from the smart contract. So again, let's take the YouTuber example. I'm a famous YouTuber. I post my videos on YouTube. I am probably the beneficiary in a sense that when people buy their memberships, every once in a while, I can click withdraw on the smart contract and get whatever amount of token was paid by my members to access the content. So that's the beneficiary. We also and so one thing that could be done here, which is interesting, is like a platform like YouTube could say, hey, we want to be a co-beneficiary. So rather than actually be asking the user to be the only beneficiary, they could be a multisig basically, or a split contract through which the proceeds would be split between the platform and the creator. And so the creator would say, okay, cool, I'm using the platform now. But to do that, I have to change the beneficiary to a smart contract that is a multisig in some way, split between the creator and the platform. And so when I withdraw, the money doesn't go all in my wallet. Obviously, it goes first to the multisig, through which it is split between the platform and me, the creator. So that would be one way to do this. And then arguably in that scenario, the platform would only show the locks if they can make sure that they are a co-beneficiary, if you want, on that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense. I had looked at another route, and I'm sure there's lots of routes where a new contract was created and included unlock within that, and then sort of had my own sort of version of buy that ended up using unlock sort of under the hood. But it seemed like it would be nice to have a stance on what unlock does as part of that stack, and there's a lot of room to add value there and to get rewarded
Absolutely.
for that value.
Absolutely. Yes, agree. So actually, the point that you raised is a good point. I spoke recently with another team based in Italy, actually, was using the protocol, and they are asking the same question. And the approach that they took is kind of what the one you described, where basically they say when people use our platform, they have to deploy a custom lock, which to me is a bit of a disappointment because I do think that the membership should be cross-platforms and you shouldn't have a membership on YouTube, a membership on Twitch, a membership on Notion. You should have one. But in that scenario, basically, they require users to deploy a custom lock that actually happens through another proxy in that way. And in that scenario, the lock, the smart contract, is collectively managed. So it's not just the co-beneficiary, but it's fully co-managed between the creator and the platform. So that's another way to do it. But again, I worry that it might actually be a bit have a bunch of challenges around the fact that I think it's important for memberships to be cross-platform and not be tied to a single platform. Another idea that's actually linked to the beneficiary. Inside of a smart contract, we have the concept of an approved beneficiary. So we have the main beneficiary, which is the address that receives funds every time there is a withdrawal that is being called on the smart contract. But there is also the mechanism for what we call the lock manager. So the person who is the main creator of the lock, if you want, to approve an address to withdraw a certain amount. And so in that scenario, rather than actually have the beneficiary being shared between the platform and the creator, the platform could say, hey, you can use our platforms, obviously, but we want to be approved to withdraw up to an amount from the smart contract. So maybe it's, $10, $100, $1,000. So it's an absolute value. And basically the platform, if they're an approved beneficiary, can call the smart contract at any point and say, okay, cool, it's time for us to collect our fees in that context. So these are the two approaches that I can think of, and I'm sure there's a ton more. I think the point that you make about us having a stance is definitely a good one. At least I think we should document these things and maybe have more clarity. Why I like the approach of the beneficiary is the idea really of the Legos. It's the idea that beneficiaries and fees and splits, because that's actually how Web3 calls them, is not necessarily part of the core protocol, but should come from another protocol or another set of smart contract. And really the idea of having all of these things work together to create a rich experience is something that I'm excited about.
Gotcha. Thanks. Yeah, that was great background.
Anybody has a contribution to make on that point specifically?
I think there's a really interesting opportunity here to sort of sketch all of this out. Um, because when you start looking at how the concept of membership fits in with all of these other different types of things, that idea of Lego, the idea of composability, I think makes a ton of sense. And so I think folks can really start to envision, oh, okay, we've got the concept of membership, but who, if there's a value transfer that's part of this, who gets part of that, or if there's a split between multiple folks, how do we do that? Or if there's the concept of royalties. And the more we build on these things and show how these different types of protocols and capabilities across the Web3 landscape can fit together, I think that's going to help us to inspire more building using the protocol and using all the complementary tools that are out there as well.
Absolutely, yeah. And if I were to say what's the difference between Web3 and Web 2, it's really the idea of, again, these different things working together and nobody owning the whole stack. Because going back to the point that you were making about the middlemen, I think they're required as long as they're not acting as gatekeepers, as long as they cannot censor or ban or steal someone's revenues or completely control the experience. It's the idea that if I publish my content on a platform, I should be able to, take it with me, that content, and then publish it somewhere else. I think that's critical, and that's really kind of the core ethos of the web. And that somewhere else might be another middleman, and it's fine. It doesn't have to be my website on my own domain, running on my own laptop in my own bedroom in that way. Cool. Anybody else has question? I see we have a bunch of new people. Tukio Kid, Marks builds it. Timbala. I'm gonna butcher names. Timbala Bush. Please let me know if you guys have any question. We're here to answer these, help people build on top of the protocol. Again, answer questions about how to do things, but also future things that we could do. And the discussion we just had with Matt is definitely one of the things that I'm thinking about as we're having discussion with multiple people, building platforms or building larger applications, and thinking about a way for these platforms and application to allow creators to easily monetize. Actually, one other idea, Matt, that I should provide out there is the idea that you could actually have your own membership for monetized links. You could say, hey, that feature is a premium feature, and it's only available for you if you have a membership, not to a specific creator, but to the monetized linked application. And so kind of have a meta membership, if you want, that would allow people to use locks on their Notion docs in that scenario.
Yeah, I think that's a really great feature that I have to keep remembering that I should implement, and it's definitely low hanging fruit.
Yep.
On the other side of it, in the retro, I sort of mentioned this, but was a sort of a different idea, which is there's proof of the entitlement, proof of the key that you're an owner of the NFT, but there's not necessarily proof that you've read something, which is something maybe in a different direction, but it's something that content publishers are often looking to answer questions about. And so I think, if you really start getting creative with the protocol, I can see lots of room for taking what exists currently and then, really molding it to the needs of content producers.
Absolutely. So tell me more about what you mean by proof that you've read something. Would that be protocol? I mean, how would you move that into the protocol versus the app? Because it's application specific in my mind, but maybe I'm misunderstanding.
Yeah, I mean, take an example of being in a classroom, and did you read the reading of the day? Maybe the class, maybe the school owns the key to the content, and you somehow are granted it. I'm hand
Yes.
waving a bit here, but
Yeah.
the end result is that you end up with a badge that said that I read chapter one, and
Absolutely.
it's sort of like proof of
Yes. Proof of
uh,
attendance per app. Yeah.
attendance, but
Yeah.
remade into proof of reading or proof of being an active participant.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are a couple of ways to do that. One is the sort of automated ways that if you were there, if you were in space, if you were in the app, then that POAP type thing could be automated. Could also be sort of kind of micro quizzes or Q&A types of things based on the context of the reading. And in that case, what you're getting in that case of a badge, it's almost a lightweight credential that sort of shows you did the thing. So there are a number of different ways that we could absolutely do that with all the tools that are in place today.
Absolutely. And actually, on that front, so Chris mentioned the CDAA certification. We actually have a guide on the guides website on how to do these POAPs. And indeed, the way to do that, the smart contract level, if you will, at the protocol level, is one of the roles that there is on the contract is the idea of what we call a key grantor. So it is an address that is allowed to airdrop in the crypto world, but grant NFTs to specific addresses. And so the way to do that would be to say, okay, cool, my application is going to have a key grantor role, or is going to be a key grantor in that scenario. And then when the user does certain actions, like complete the course or finish reading the material or connected 30 times in the last 30 days, the application could easily airdrop a membership to users, and that would act as a badge, basically. What's interesting about that is like that membership could be, a full one. It could also be time. So you say, hey, okay, cool. Let's say you have a paywall and on a publisher site, and you say, okay, cool. If somebody shows up every day of the month, maybe we'll give them, an extra 10 days at the end of the month. So we extend the duration of their existing membership. So we don't drop them another NFT, but we, extend the benefits so that they can read maybe a little bit more of the content for free over the next few days in that scenario. So that really is kind of I don't want to say gamification, but it's really the kind of tools that the protocol provides for creators, for publishers, to reward their audience in ways that is kind of circular. It gives them more permission, more rights based on what actions they've done. And I think that's kind of what you're alluding to with the classroom example that you had here.
Yeah, totally. I think that you can really squint and see a lot of potential here. And I certainly see the challenge of the protocol of kind of defining itself in this ever-changing world where the frontier of this is constantly being invented. So I really look forward to seeing how some of these features that are kind of uh, yet to be discovered are made
Yes.
part of the story of Unlock.
Absolutely. So that's a very good point. Like as you said, they're already there in the smart contract, but people are not necessarily leveraging them as much as we expect them to be. But I think that's going to come as with adoption, and it's already coming. We already see people doing these things. Another, maybe one of the thinking that I have deeply about this. So I said earlier, I do think membership should be cross-platform. So the idea that if I have a membership to a specific creator on YouTube, it shouldn't be stuck on YouTube. I should be able to go watch content from that same creator on Twitch or on some other video platform, Vimeo, and then be able to prove that I have the membership and then access some of the benefits that this creator might offer to their members across platforms. So that's one of the key aspects, like cross-platform memberships. Another one that is something that I often kind of struggle to express, but I think it's also kind of related, is the idea that the membership should be part of the experience. Here's what I'm thinking. Like when you go to Netflix and you log in, the only time that you realize that you're actually a Netflix member is when you get at the end of the month or whenever that is, the credit card statement, and you see that Netflix charged you 10, 12, $15. I do think that the membership itself should be part of the experience. So it's almost like when I watch Netflix, oh, you've completed a movie. Here is, another hour worth of membership that you can use to watch the sequel. Or, when you use an application, if you've done some cool stuff for the application, whether you've, contacted support and they helped you resolve an issue, but that was helping the company improve their product, they should be able to give you time off of the membership. And it's really the idea that right now we think of paying as you pay and then you use, and it's very decoupled. It's almost like we're worried about asking people to get the membership or to pay for something. But I do think there's a ton of value in actually bringing that inside of the core experience of using the product as a way to, again, reward people or signal support and things like this. I do think this is critical and instrumental, and I really want to see more of that in the space. It's going to take time. One of the places where it's obvious is gaming. So, for example, I know people in that community probably have heard of her, but like Caroline, what she does with Tales of Elatura is the idea that when I buy my avatar to play the game, obviously it's an NFT. At the same time, I receive a weapon, and it's another NFT, another membership. The idea that if my weapon membership expires, my avatar doesn't show the weapon anymore, I think is an example of that, having the membership, again, part of the core experience rather than just a payment thing that happens once and then I forget about it, or there's some kind of, again, barrier between I pay and I use the product. I do think this should be part of the core experience. And to be clear, this is not just an experience that Unlock does. Like if you think about Discord, actually, that's a good point. And Chris did this, but you can give boosts to a server when you're there, and I think that's kind of an example of what I'm going for here. It's the boosts are obviously something that people pay for. You can earn some by using Discord a bunch, but then you can use them to help support applications and servers in that example. And so I do think that it actually brings the business model kind of front and center of the experience, not just as a one thing that happens in the beginning. And I say front and center because Chris on his profile, I think, has a little diamond that shows that he's one of the boosters of the server.
Yeah, it's a super cool model that Discord has built in that really, I think, aligns the benefits and the incentives of all the different participants. So if you're a server owner, you want more folks in there and you want your server to have more capabilities. If you are a participant in the server, you want the server to be able to do more things and be able to have more features for you, and you're willing to invest in that. And if you are Discord, you need to make money out of that. And so instead of asking the server owner to pony up, the folks who are actually getting value out of being part of that community, they are putting a few pennies into the collective community, if you will, by paying to Discord, which then turns on more things or gives more superpowers to the server. So I think it's a really interesting kind of three-sided business model where the sort of the host, the participants in the community, as well as the platform all are aligned with the way that they've set that up, which is pretty cool.
Absolutely. And I remember now what Tim told me to do more often is to reframe the conversation and reset the stage. So just for everyone who's just joined us, this is the Office Hours, our monthly event happening for the community, creators, grantees, developers to ask questions about how the protocol works, where it could go, how to do certain things. Obviously, the stage is yours. If you have any questions, feel free to kind of step up and join us here. And I see we have a question. I mean, Angela is here. I don't know how to have you come on stage, Angela. But I will look for this. As you can realize, I'm a noob when it comes to Discord. Hey, here she is.
Oh, there we go. There we go.
And for context, it's Angela's first day today. I'm very, very excited to have her join us. She's, I was going to say a reformed software engineer, but she's still a software engineer. I mean, you start once, you're that forever. But she's going to help lead our developer evangelism or developer advocacy efforts, as well as a bunch of community work. So she'll definitely take the lead on some of these in the future. So expect to see her maybe next month instead of me. I mean, I'll be here obviously, but she'll do a much better job than I do.
Hello, everyone.
Hey, hey.
So happy to be here. And yes, I hope that software engineering does not need to be reformed. Although I certainly speak to people a lot more than I used to. Anyway, I'm so excited to be here. And today I'm just hoping to get an opportunity to learn more about everyone else.
Cool. And obviously, feel free to message Angela on the public channels. Welcome her on the general one. I think there's a little thread there, especially for her. She's gonna take a couple days to learn everything, but she's gonna be one of your main point of contacts for any question related to the protocol. The how to write code with the protocol, how to build application, platforms, etc., etc.
Welcome. I look forward to seeing what you do, and for me as a developer who's just recently started with this, developing a mental map or a mental model of what's going on is really challenging. So in your first few weeks, I would really encourage you to take a lot of notes, because I didn't do that recently, and when I had to do sort of a retro, I was like, oh no, I forgot what those pain points were. So um, just my today's experience sharing with you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and I'm working right now on a adapt starter kit too that kind of will inform some of those pain points. Hopefully, it'll also be useful to anybody else who wants to use it in the future. So expect to see that coming out pretty soon. No dates for dropping it yet, but it won't be too long.
Cool.
Amazing.
Super love that. And also, wanted to shout out, in addition to the retro, Matt did put together a very, very solid guide, very awesome guide on how to do the integration between Monetize and Unlock and Notion. And that's both up on the Monetize site, and it is part of the Unlock guide site as well. So if you go to unlock-protocol.com/guides, you will see that Notion token gating guide, as well as almost a dozen other types of guides that we do have up for creators and folks who are using Unlock Protocol in various ways.
Amazing. I want to make sure that everybody in the audience gets a chance to speak. Otherwise, I'm going to jump to a question that I've seen in the developer channel today. But maybe let's start making sure that if anybody wants to take a couple of minutes to ask a question, please use the little request button that's at the bottom of the Discord window. I'll do one awkward silence just to make sure we get a chance to that, but otherwise I'll jump to the developer question. Awesome, Games Master. Let me actually invite you. Oh, and Miles, nice. Welcome to you both. Right.
Hello, GM. Can you hear me?
Yes, GM.
Thanks for inviting me up. I actually have a few questions, and I have a feeling some of these will be answered in some of your existing docs. So if you can just say if they are, and I'll go dig those out. But the first one. So we have a web app, and we're using Unlock to manage access, and we're using IHP, which is a Haskell web framework, and we're wondering how you'd recommend integrating it, because there tends to be a lot of talk about JavaScript frameworks, but not so much about the actual code or APIs. And I figured if you knew that we're not using one of the frameworks that's commonly used by your customer base, then you might be able to point us to the documentation for the actual API or code side of things.
Absolutely. So for starters, we probably don't have good docs on this. We have a general framework of how to build token-gated application, which could be applicable, but we definitely don't have something that is kind of I don't say low level, but like deep enough that would make sense here. But the way I would do that, and I'm not familiar with Haskell at all. First, you don't need to use JavaScript, so that's a big key aspect. That said, if you don't have JavaScript, one thing that you will probably need to have is a way to redirect users to a web page in which they can do things and then be redirected back into your application. And so we built this way so that it could actually be happening inside of games or native application on mobile devices. So if your application is not a web app, it should still work. The way it works is actually pretty simple. The first step, as we always say, is to identify the user. And we have a little I shouldn't call that OAuth because it's not purely OAuth, but an OAuth-like framework that allows you to, again, redirect users to a page where they can connect their wallet and sign a message. That's the critical part. And then we redirect the user back to your application with the signed message. And by using the signed message, and I'm sure there's a library in Haskell for this, you can recover the user's address in that scenario to identify the user. And you now know that the user is 0x1234, which then you can use to do the second step. And the second step is to verify that on the smart contract, 0x1234 has a valid membership. To do that, it would be using an RPC endpoint. And I know there is libraries in many languages to do that. I don't know that there's one in Haskell, but that's definitely something worth looking at. In practice, if there's none, and I know, for example, that some languages don't have some, it is still kind of a JSON HTTP call. So you make an HTTP call with a JSON body to an RPC endpoint, and you get a response that is JSON as well that you can parse to identify the data. And so that would be that API call that you would make to a blockchain node that would tell you, okay, cool, this address, yes, does have a valid membership, or no, doesn't have a valid membership. So this way, you don't actually need JavaScript inside of the application. You can do all of these things in a pure HTTP way. That's the only thing that you would need to make this work.
Got it. Yeah, because the way we have it set up right now, once a user signs the message, we essentially reveal the CSS to them. But we know that that's not that there's ways around it. If someone knew what they were doing on the front end side, they could reveal that CSS without having to verify their wallet.
Yeah. So the way to go here would be to, once they have signed the message, keep the signed message as a cookie if you want on the front end, and then send that signed message with every API calls that you make to the backend. And then the backend is the one that can, identify the signer from the signature and check whether the signer indeed has a valid membership. And in that scenario, only serve content if the user has a valid membership. So you would do backend unlocking rather than doing it front end in that scenario.
Yeah, I thought that might be the case. Great. And then the other question I have, so we are looking to be able to support both Polygon and mainnet Ethereum. And I'm wondering, well, one, when you create a lock on Polygon, the payment method is Matic. So looking for a way to change that to POS ETH instead of
it is
being
absolutely
Matic.
Possible to do wrapped ETH or any ERC20. Yes, so yes, and actually we should and Shelly's not here, but she's working on a revised version of the dashboard that would make this obvious, because you can actually create a lock on any network, whether it's obviously Polygon mainnet, that is using ERC20 as the core currency. So you would be able to use POS ETH or USDC or FWB tokens, anything that actually is available on Polygon as well.
Got it. And then so the final question, we have annual subscriptions, and for those, we're doing them on mainnet ETH just to reduce the friction of people having to bridge their
Yep.
ETH, and they don't mind paying the gas because it's a higher ticket item. But then for the monthly subscriptions, that's the ones that are going to be on Polygon.
Mhm.
So we're going to have two separate keys on different networks. Can you foresee there being any issues with setting that up? We
No,
figured we would just figure that out a little bit further down the line, but might be
no,
good
it
to get
should
ahead of
actually,
it now.
it would actually work pretty much the same as I described, except that instead of making one RPC call, you would make two, one to a Polygon node and the main, their public RPC, which I think is Polygon-RPC, would just work out of the box. And then one to a mainnet node, which would be, using Infura or Alchemy or any of these, would actually just work outside of the box. So instead of making one call, you would say, okay, cool, we recover the signed message, we know the address, and then we make two HTTP calls, one to each network to check whether the user has a membership to any of the two contracts on either Polygon or mainnet.
Okay. Yeah, simple enough.
Cool.
Thank you very much.
Of course, and feel free to, put this question back into the developer channel for clarification. I can write some words as well if that's not 100% obvious, which is probably the case. And that's also going to be helpful for us to start working on documentation. Exactly what you asked, like, okay, how can I do this in a framework that is not necessarily JavaScript based?
Yeah, I'll definitely do that for that first question, since I want to make sure my CTO sees all of the full details of the answer, because my notes were pretty bare.
Absolutely. Let me, in the meantime, post in the developer channel the link to the doc page that is the closest to what you're asking for, but it's definitely not good enough.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you,
Cool.
Julian.
Of course. And Miles, I think you had a question. Let me invite you back on stage, if you want. Show requests. Oh, I can't do that. Invite to speak. Yes. Cool.
Hey, good morning, good afternoon. How's everybody
GM.
doing today? Just a quick question. Sorry if I missed it. Where do we, with regard to nominations and voting, is there a notification in the dashboard, or where do we learn about that?
That's a very good question. Actually, we should probably try to put notification in the dashboard. Right now, I just posted on Discord in the governance channel, which is unfortunately not enough. But I mean, that's actually a great idea to be able to post these things inside of the web apps, kind of a little post it somewhere. I'm saying this for Chris. See if he thinks this is a great idea, like little marketing.
Yeah, no, I
tooltip.
like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
So maybe that's something that we can do. But in the meantime, yes, the governance channel on Discord, and I will do a little at reply to you on that one.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Cool. So I want you to, and we're short on time now, so I want to make sure that everybody who had a question is able to ask it. So feel free to raise your hand if you have one. Otherwise, I'll jump into the question from the developer channel, because I think that was a good one and might be actually informative for everyone. Waiting an awkward moment here. Cool. All right. So the developer channel question was prompted by Rufuxofor, and it was asking about if you could use the hook on key purchase to change the price of keys on a specific lock dynamically. And the answer is yes, absolutely. That's actually one of the main goals of that hooks. So for people who are not fully aware, the idea of hooks is to make the smart contract itself kind of extensible, to add more functionality to it. So for example, you could add a CAPTCHA mechanism, and that's actually one of the things that we've done for several of the conferences that are using Unlock for tickets, because they wanted to avoid hoarders buy a lot of tickets and then sell them back. So they created a system where people have to go through a CAPTCHA mechanism to make a purchase. But the on-purchase hook, which is the one that we're describing, actually has two entry points, two functions. The first one is called key purchase price, and it is called by the smart contract when somebody triggers a purchase function. and will return the price that the user needs to pay. So that's the first function. The second function is called on-key purchase, and this one is the last thing that happens on the purchase function and is something that is used to, update data after a purchase has been performed. So using the hook allows developers mostly, but eventually there's going to be, I assume, standard hooks that are being built to change the price of a membership dynamically based on some external factors. So there's actually two ways to do what Roughhooks4 was asking. Either you change dynamically at the moment of purchase, which might create issues because the user might not understand why they see a price and actually end up paying something different, or use the second function of the hook to actually change the price after each purchase so that the next purchase has a different price in that scenario. So that's one of the ways to use the hook. Honestly, the hooks are one of the best things about the smart contract. And again, going back to the discussion with Matt earlier in our happy hour, we really try to build the protocol with kind of Legos in mind, ways to implement, or should I say increment it, make it better by having mechanisms that people can use to change how it behaves or how things happen when something else happens. So that's one of the key aspects. Obviously, I realize this is fairly technical and requires some implementation work, but that's actually one of the areas where I expect us to invest a little bit in the documentation, in the tutorials, to make it really easy for people to build cool stuff with that. Anybody has questions about this?
I just think the concept of doing dynamic pricing is pretty cool and pretty amazing, and I can see all sorts of different applications for that based on demand, based on time, based on season, and
Yep.
being able to bring that all into the model, and just knowing that power and that flexibility is there if and when folks need it is, I think, super important.
Absolutely. All right. I want to make sure that everyone gets a couple seconds if they want to ask a question. I see a bunch of newcomers. I think Tim, it's the first time I see you here. Same for Kizio Kid, I assume, and Games Master as well. So welcome, everyone. Okay, as a reminder, we just today started a campaign for retroactive funding for the month of May. So if anyone has built something really cool or think is something that makes a difference for the protocol, you should nominate them. I know we have already 2 nominations, Matt and David Moderator, our moderator, for his work. I would love to see more people nominate themselves or nominate their friends. Please do nominate people that you think made a difference. And then next week, remember to vote for these, and remember to ask other community members to vote for these. Our goal here, I'll say it one more time, is to distribute ownership of the protocol. It's not, it is not called Julian's protocol or Chris's protocol, or it really is a community-given or community-led effort. Our goal is to share ownership as much as possible with anyone who is building on top or with Unlock. And so you should take a moment to nominate and vote for the people that you think are contributing valuable things. It is an important part of our work here.
And one other quick shout out. Last week we had a really fantastic conversation over on Twitter Spaces talking about the ability to do recurring subscriptions and that model that the community has brought forth. So if you haven't had a chance to check that out, it's both at the top of our Twitter feed right now. It's pinned as long as Twitter keeps it recording up, which is probably for another 2 or 3 weeks or so. We've also taken it and exported it and rendered it, and it's also in our YouTube channel as well. So if you check out either of those places, if you haven't had a chance to really dive into what the power of recurring subscriptions and recurring revenue is, have a listen. And there was a just great conversation with the community and a lot of relevant topics of where that idea and ability to bring in this concept of recurring subscriptions into the NFT world and into the membership world that is now available. So check that out as well.
Amazing. And in the meantime, I want to thank everyone who joined us today. Of course, you can ask questions after this, but feel free to show up next month as well for the next office hours and creators and grantees. We're here to help. These discussions are really, really useful for us to understand what are the blind spots in the protocol, in the tooling that we have, what are the misunderstandings sometimes that we need to clarify. So thank you everyone for showing up today. Please never ever hesitate to reach out. We're here to help, and we're excited to have you with us as part of the process.
Thank you.
And yeah, thanks, Matt. And with that, I think this is a wrap. See you all online, obviously. Thanks for being here.